Otherwise, I'm always open to feedback. I'm always open to any number of things. And just let's try to have fun, shall we? Are you guys ready for some fun? All right. So I'm going to go through this one. Let's see if my sound works. Of course it doesn't. Oh well. Let's move on. Okay, normally I have a little tune to play. Okay, so how many of you guys are coming into this completely, utterly, and totally green? You're staring at me going, Andrew, what the hell is a magical girl? Oh, no, it's a illusion. No worries. Okay. So what the heck is a magical girl anyway? So what is a magical girl? To find the best possible and encompassing answer, I turned to my favoriteest website in the entire world for looking this stuff up at TV tropes. I live on that website. And this is the TV tropes definition. Magical girls are empowered by various beings with fantastic powers that both assist and complicate their lives, but they manage to persevere despite this. And there are a number of different versions. The most common ones that you will see are the cute witch, the magic idol singer, and the one that we all know the best of, the magical girl warrior, which is the main topic I have. Woo! I'd love to cover the other ones, but again, I don't have all. Sorry, I don't have them. So what the heck is the difference between the three? The first one, there we go. The cute witch is basically Samantha from Bewitched, Jeannie from I Dream of Jeannie. It's a female character who uses her powers in day-to-day life. Could be a domestic thing. She could be a housewife. She could be a housekeeper. She could just be going through her life. Just she doesn't do anything out of the ordinary. Well, it's having magical powers. Wouldn't be doing anything out of the ordinary. Just getting through her life and just using her magic to assist and or complicate things a little bit. In some ways, yes. Magic idol singer is a female character who uses her powers to become an idol singer or other entertainer. One example of that is from Full Moon Osagashite or Full Moon Osagashite. That would be your magic idol singer.
Creamy Mommy.
Oh, that's right, Creamy Mommy. That one they just had, what was it, like 20 or 25th anniversary of that a year or so ago, wasn't it?
Probably.
Something like that. I think they're having, yeah.
Would you consider Cheryl from Across Frontier a magical idol singer?
I think to a degree she probably would be. It's kind of a weird because it's very much a sci-fi. It's very sci-fi. But I do think that she and Ron Pickett should have elements of the magic idol singer. Lindsay May is a little bit more just your idol singer. Another example of a magic idol singer within the kind of the magical girl genre is Utao Jugoka, which happens to be one of my favorites. So the last one is the magical girl warrior, which is the female character or group who has magic powers so that they're able to fight evil and protect the world. So obviously, these are the ones that we all know. This is the one that we know the best. So, that said, unfortunately I forgot the cookies. Cookie bag. So what is a dark theme? When I talk about dark theme, what is a dark theme in magical girl anime? What are some of your guys' ideas? Oh, we use pointers? Oh, I spy a cute name. Yeah.
So usually there's a handsome Prince Charming, what he turns out to actually be evil. So switch gone forms.
That's a good example of it. Yeah.
Yes, fighting, like whatever monster it is.
Good example.
I think it's something like when you show a 10-year-old.
Bingo. The primary definition I use for talking about dark themes are themes or images that would generally, when you talk about our morals and our values, it would be deemed too disturbing, violent, or mature to show in an unaltered form on an American cartoon show. Now, there are always going to be exceptions, and I have noticed in the last at least 5 to 7 years that even our cartoons are becoming a little bit darker, and our animation is starting to show more dark themes, but we're still not the same levels. These are the sort of things that, especially in the older series, they might have been edited out, like the infamous D dub for Sailor Moon. They might be toned down, things might be changed, elements might be changed to make them more palatable to audiences outside of Japan. To my knowledge, I don't know if there's a lot of very extreme editing done as much as there used to be. I know sometimes some countries will do it, but I'm not coming up with any. I haven't come up with any examples that do heavy editing. There might be snippets taken out. There might be some things that are toned down or slightly changed because the material is still objectionable. Yes.
A friend of mine who lives in Norway, apparently the anime they air there, they heavily cut down on the blood and whatnot.
Okay, so Norway does edits?
Yeah,
Okay, so
they toned down blood and violence.
okay. Yeah, I will say sometimes the anime does get a little violent, even for my taste, but that's kind of neither here nor there. Okay, so what are some things that, when you guys hear about a dark theme, what do you guys think of?
Death.
Yep, that's a big one. Good. What is it?
Paranormal death.
Could be, yeah.
I always think of things that is a definition similar to the one before, what it's like. It's a thing that is targeted at one demographic, a whole demographic of that profession, also not an elite demographic.
So more mature things. Much more mature things. Excellent. Yeah. What is it?
Brainwashing.
Excellent. Yeah, there's any number of them. I unfortunately, like I said, I don't have a whole night to cover all of them. So obviously death. Yeah.
Well, maybe of like being stressed while we feel human beings, so to speak, like how all that is broken out once you go out.
Dark themes are one of those interesting things where it's like Q-based. You know, there can be a zillion of them. And anything you can think of that it could be dark. So there's obviously death. There's obviously violence. Mature themes, betrayal, abuse, could be brainwashing, could be anything that could be perceived as negative. Sexual themes. You don't see them as much with Magical Girl, but you will see them periodically. Perceived drug and alcohol use. Oh, that's especially not liked over on this side of the world. And then anything that can be thought of as deviant or aberrant. Basically, if you have a character that's shown to be going against the norm, that's not always really seen as a good thing. Sometimes it's really shown as a negative. So why do you guys think that there are these dark themes? Why do you think these are present?
Because it's a good way to expose people to it.
That's one way of looking at it. All the way back.
I think anime, because it's such a unique form of storytelling, allows us to kind of approach these darker issues without it being as in your face as if it was like a live action. So it's kind of like a way to make it palatable to us, even though it is something you're actually seeing.
Definitely, that is one good way of looking at it. Yeah.
It adds depth to the characters and the plot.
That's another good point. Right,
the author of the series could possibly have something they want to say about the theme, and the only way that they think they're going to get it out is by putting it in.
Okay, that's a good way of looking at it. Yeah.
I think sometimes they actually just want to shock because of the gap. Yeah, cute girl does something horribly violent all the time.
That actually is a really good point. Yeah.
I feel like it was less popularity in the sense like you're adults, not on the side, but also there's more maybe speed is married, there's all the
Yeah, that is a good point. Last one, yes.
Just for a contrast, usually the characters start off fairly young, so if you contrast the innocence of youth with learning with more.
Absolutely. Coming of age. So the most obvious answer that I can come up with, and this, forgive me for being mildly flip on this, as to why stories include very dark themes. I know, sorry, that's what I'm saying. But the simple answer, there wouldn't be a story. How many of us would watch a Magical Girl series where there was no conflict? Boring. Okay, well, I guess there's an audience for this. Now, how many of us would watch a Magical Girl series where Sailor Moon meets the monster of the week, She waves her magic scepter, she throws her tiara, she waves her magic scepter, poof, the monster is gone. And that's the end of the episode.
That's what I thought.
So it is actually not that simple.
Yeah, that's why I didn't watch it back then because I thought that's what it was.
Kind of got ahead of myself again. So while this is deciding to be a little bit, this is being a bit of a pain in the neck to me. So basically, the reason that a lot of dark themes are present is conflict allows characters to grow and to mature. I mean, our lives are there's a lot of our lives that is based around conflict, whether it's within ourselves, with others, anything like that. We are based on conflict, we grow and we mature based on the challenges that we face. And the Magical Girl series show that as well. It's also a really good mirror in terms of a girl's growth and her maturity from a young, usually 14, 15, maybe 16-year-old girl, as she grows into a young woman. I was going to actually be doing a brand new panel in the morning called The Magical Girl's Journey, where I'd like to touch more on that heroic journey and how the Magical Girl series, the Magical Girl genre, fits into it. So it also establishes relationships between the characters. It establishes, okay, who is allied with who has rivalry with who just outright hates who and wants to kill them. And it creates characters that we can better relate to, again, because we see a lot of challenges and a lot of conflicts. Who would like a perfect hero? A perfect hero does absolutely no wrong, does everything that they touch is gold. It doesn't sound like very much fun to me. It doesn't sound like a character that I would ever relate to.
Sounds like Superman.
Yes.
To some degree, yes. Unfortunately, to some degree, yes. Okay, so the next slide, I always like to start with this. How many of you guys have seen the very famous Princess Tutu and what called it? There's one that is very, very famous. You'll probably recognize it. If you have seen it, or if you've seen it, you'll probably recognize it by the title card. I just hope my sound works. So that's usually how I like to start because it really is a good introduction to some of the thematics that are shown in a lot of series. Let's see if my audio works. And if it doesn't, no, I am not singing. All right. Oh, good, it works. I love this video. Okay. So the first topic that I always touch on is death. One of the most common, if not the most common, dark theme you will see in a Magic Girl series. It is. There we go. It can be used to begin a series. It can be used to end a series. So it can be used as your backstory. It can be used as part of the storyline. It can be any combination. It can be used to end the series. Speaking of Princess Tutu, the idea of once upon a time there was a man who died. The opening line to the whole series. I mean, and that actually, I think, sets the whole stage for Princess Tutu. When you start with a line like that as the very first line that anybody in the show speaks, I think that's a really good way of setting up that this is not your typical fluffy, magical series. So it's not necessarily permanent, depending on the series canon. Sailor Moon is a good example of that. Death is not necessarily permanent, but it can lead to death being extremely cheap. I mean, every time somebody dies, they are brought back. It really does very much lessen the blow of death. It lessens the impact of it. Because death, like a lot of things, death needs to be used very wisely. Otherwise, lest you waste a very, very emotional deed on something that's extremely trivial. I mean, if it's just a throwaway, oh yeah, they died, oh, they're back, without some decent development behind it or something that really explains it, it can be a very, very, very cheap way out. One of these slides shows an example of it from Sailor Moon Stars, which would be Galaxia, the fight between Galaxia and the intersection. So it generally comes in you have two types of death. The most common type that you will see is what I call literal death. It's just what it says on the tin. You have a character who dies either on screen or off screen as part of the story. Remember this is not just Magical Girl series. This is any kind of series, any kind of genre, whether your horror, your sci-fi, your fantasy, your romance. Any character can die for any reason that falls within the bounds of canon. And some of it can further the storyline. It can be deaths of a family of your friends, deaths of a mentor, deaths of allies. It can be anybody that can further the storyline or lead to character development. Villain deaths are usually handled in a very different fashion. They tend to be more you have failed me kind of a variety. They're kind of their own weird sort of a dynamic, I notice. They're handled very differently. They're usually very quick. They're often ones that are designed to make the victim suffer. I notice they're very, very harsh. One that comes to my mind, especially since we're thinking on Sailor Moon, is I noticed this some of the deaths of the generals in the Sailor Moon, in the anime especially. They are not pretty deaths. They are, you have one that's put into an eternal sleep. You have one that's basically run through with thorns. You have one that's just blasted. They're not pretty deaths, and they're not meant to be. So I think the next slide is the one that has my example of death from stars. It is. It works.
4つの星の輝きも消えようとしている。ジェリタ、マーキュリー、ヴィーナス、マーズ。 私たちにとっては大切な人だよ。そんな自分たちが消えてしまうのにお願い、私たちの代わりうさぎちゃんこの世界に守って姉ちゃん姉ちゃん姉ちゃんみんな
pain, I touch on it a little bit later with another theme. It's the idea not just of physical pain, but of emotional pain too. I'll touch on that in a little bit. So mature themes is kind of my catch-all for other themes that you'll see that really don't have their own, necessarily their own major genre. So you have betrayal, which a hero may find their allies turning on them and forcing them often that they have to fight, whether it's a battle of wits, a battle of swords, whatever. Can lead to redemption or even death, or sometimes redemption in death for allies. Although in many cases, in some cases, that death may be reversible, depending on the balance of the mechanic. The crisis moment is one that you'll see every so often. You see it in Sail the Moon briefly. You see it in Freeze Here. You see it in a few different ones. The heroes might have a moment of inner conflict over their ethics, their beliefs, something they have learned. This is typically actually a breaking point, a breaking tactic that villains will often use. This is one where a villain, for example, one that I can think of, the villain has revealed to the hero some nugget of information that morally just devastates the hero. For example, in Free Tier, I usually use this. You'll see that in Free Tier. I actually have a clip of that. But it can actually lead to a character not being able to fight. It can affect their ability to perform their role, and sometimes it can actually turn them. It can actually turn them to becoming something of a villain themselves, something of a fallen hero. It's not necessarily permanent, but it can affect them for pretty much the rest of a show or storyline. Okay, this one is one that's one of my favorites. It's the idea of becoming that which you fight, or he who fights monsters must take care not to become a monster himself. So the character is confronted with that idea of becoming that monster. Sometimes it's a literal confrontation, sometimes it's a figurative one, the idea of a crisis of conscience. And it can adversely, again, as with the ideas of betrayal or of a crisis moment, it can affect the character adversely, and it can affect their ability to fight. I believe this next one is actually another monolith coming up here soon. So the idea of the character being the fallen hero. I switch them every so often. I sometimes have one of the first.
彼女のおかげで世界に平和が訪れたその日。 だからは、隼人を愛していた。だが俺は、その思いに応えることができなかった。そしてあの日、 の力の方向性が大きく狂ってた。フリーティを失った俺たちの戦いは悲惨なんだ。再起となってただの風情のために大きな犠牲を払った。
I had somebody at one of my panels who joked that was Takako basically saying, F you for trying to friend zone. I don't know if I would go that far, given the nature, but it does kind of have a tone like that. She's like, this person mentioned it, I'm like, now that you mention it. So, further continuing with the idea of electricity. So, again, it goes right into the fallen hero. This is the one, after this is, my next book will be from another time. So, a fallen hero could be as simple as the hero character feels that they can no longer fight. It could be as simple as they do not wish to fight. They can't do it, they are just burned out, they've been traumatized, any number of different things. It can be an internal struggle, it can be external, maybe they just are unable to fight any longer. If any of you notice, are fans of mixed martial arts, wrestling, anything very physical contact sports, your body breaks down, your body will burn out after a while if you're not careful. And it can be, the good thing about it is they can turn into, say, a mentor figure, an ally, maybe a background ally, a support figure, a predecessor, somebody, maybe someone that trains the next generation. Or, going with the wrestling here, it can lead to the whole face heel turn, the idea that the good guy becomes the bad guy. And not necessarily always, it's not a given that the fallen hero will become a villain, but it's one that is a pretty well-known trope. So some examples of that, Sailor Galaxia, Sasame Precretes here, the one that was in the white robes in the clip. He is actually a male example of that. Sayaka Miki, these are just the ones that I came up with off the top of my head. I probably with 10 or 9, but there's any number of them. So that will go right into speaking of Sayaka.
希望と絶望のバランスは差し引きづらかった。いつだったか、あんたは言ってたよね。今の娘、よくわかる。確かに私は何人か救い主だけどさ。だけどその分、心にも恨みや痛みが溜まって、一番大切な友達さえ傷つけて、最後、あんたまさか誰かの血が救いにおったんだ。他の誰かを呪わずには寝られない。私たちの魔法少女ってそういう仕組みだったんだ。私本当にバカ。
They don't really explain why Hayate never actually returned her feelings. It could have simply been he wasn't interested. He saw her as a friend and as an ally, but never as a love interest. And unfortunately, many of us do know about Sayate's particular circumstances. And I think what really makes them particularly heartbreaking is just how difficult it is to deal with it on your own. How many of us have dealt with whether it's a breakup, whether it is any kind of a loss? How many of us have ever dealt with loss? Of any kind. It can be anything. It can be as simple as, maybe your hamster died. Oh my gosh, when I was a kid, I had mice. I was devastated when they died. I was so devastated because I love those little mice. But the thing to me is, they said that, especially with Takako, one of the things that I noticed with her was that she didn't have anybody. They don't mention any friends. They don't mention any family. They don't mention anybody that she really can lean on besides herself and the other Fanime fans. So when she goes sideways the way she does, unfortunately, I can see where she's just stuck so much down in that she can't hold anymore in. And it's something that if there's any kind of a lesson that you can pick up from the Magical Girl series, it's don't be afraid when things are negative. Please don't be afraid to reach out to people, to reach out and say, I need help, I'm falling, I can't handle this myself. So I've got a few more, I've got a couple of minutes left. Normally I would end with, a nice long talk and a Q&A session and everything, but I'm starting to run a little low on time. So I'm just going to go through this last slide very quickly. It's mostly just some backstory elements and some other elements you don't see as often. Abuse is one. It could be physical, it could be mental, it could be I'm not seeing sexual abuse as a backstory much in the way Magical Girl series. But there are things that are often shown in flashbacks. But it can be a backstory element. It can explain the absence of family. It can explain why a character is being raised by a conventional parent figure, like a grandparent, a relative, a friend, a family friend. Sex and romantic themes will come up. One of the most famous ones, or infamous depending on how you look at it, would be Sailor Uranus and Sailor Neptune. I think Nanoha goes into some of the sex and romantic themes. Tenna has the romantic themes. They're not explicitly shown. We're not talking hentai here. But they will show romance and they will show kind of mushy, lovey, etc. Especially usually heterosexual, but you will obviously with Uranus and Neptune and some of the other ones I mentioned, you will see same with the girl character. Kanazuki no Nico, which I think would fall under Maxim Pride. Watch that one in a while. That would be one. Yeah.
Artaka Sakura has a male character.
Oh, that's true. My boyfriend is much more versed with hard cap than I am. I gotta borrow that from sometime. But yeah, that's true. There are male characters. You don't see a lot of same gender, but when you do, I think it is handled particularly well. I got about 5, 6 minutes. I think I do have about 5 minutes, so I think that's the end of my slide drop. Okay, Q&A. Does anybody have any further questions, discussion points, anything you guys want to bring up for about 5 minutes? Yeah.
Do you feel like the degree to which, even anime or even traditional Western cartoons, do you feel like the degree of censorship, I guess you could say, is broadening? People aren't cutting out as much, or you were saying, even cartoons of Western cartoons are becoming more mature. Do you feel like that's changing?
So the question, if anybody didn't hear, was, do I feel that basically, do I feel censorship is being a little bit more relaxed, not as much as being cut, etc. I think it honestly depends on the cartoon, on the medium, on the animation. I noticed a lot of what we used to consider acceptable to show on television, for example, a lot of things that were more racially sensitive, etc., are being cut or are no longer shown. How many of us grew up on Looney Tunes, for example? Are you guys noticing that a lot of the Looney Tunes shorts are being edited? They're taking out a lot of the racial, etc. I think a lot of that is what's happening. Is in some ways, some sensitivity is for the old stuff is being stricter, for example, racial, etc. And some of it in terms of anime is probably because maybe a new generation is growing up and is maturing. We are definitely being relaxed in other ways. Now, I just saw my red card. I would love to be able to stay and answer a lot more questions. I typically do. I'm so sorry, guys, but I really do appreciate you guys all coming by, and you're all